Well, hey, y'all. Good afternoon. I'm excited to be here. I hope you are too. Um, Everybody having a great time so far? One guy is. Well, I am so impressed with Dev Eternity. This is my first time at this conference, first time in Riga. Thank you so much for having me here. Now, some of you are really excited, like that one guy. You've been soaking up all kind of great content here, and you can't wait to get back to your workplace and unleash all of your knowledge onto your unsuspecting coworkers. You've probably been learning about IoT. That's a pretty hot topic right now, right? Sessions here may have tried to convince you should be connecting all of your appliances, all of your devices to the cloud and reaping all the benefits of connecting everything. Maybe you've learned about the latest JavaScript framework that just came out yesterday, and you should just forget everything you knew and start all over again with the latest JavaScript framework. But some of you, on the other hand, may be feeling a bit anxious, maybe a little overwhelmed. The content that's flooding you is, you're probably thinking, how in the world am I going to learn all this new stuff, and how am I going to convince my boss to let me do any of these new and fancy, shiny things? But what if I told you that regardless of the technology that you know, regardless of the job title you have amazing potential to impact your workplace and your family, your community, and really the entire world through the power of technology and just in powerful, meaningful ways that you can have an influence on other people. First, I want to tell you a story about myself, about how, maybe a cautionary tale, if you will. Maybe some of you will, this will resonate with you as well. When I got started in my career, I was doing a mix of programming and IT, and I just absolutely loved solving problems and fixing things. I couldn't believe that I actually got paid to do a lot of the things that I got to do. I just loved it. But then a funny thing happened. I got promoted to a management position, and I hated it. All I wanted to do was write code. I'm an introvert, believe it or not. And so me going and talking to people and getting their project status or figuring out, how I could help them or whatever, that just wasn't remotely in my nature. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I resented the role and the responsibilities, and I did the bare minimum to get by, and I tried it for a while, but about 18 months later, I took another job just doing programming and making less money. Now, this cycle of promotion to management and despair and moving to another role or another job, this repeated itself several times early in my career. And my wife would ask me, "What do you have against making more money?" That's not it. See, my ideal job consisted of give me the most powerful computer, give me a virtually unlimited supply of caffeinated beverages, and stand back while I write some code. Can I get an amen? You know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, that's not all there is to it. And I made a lot of mistakes in my career. so far, and I'm not done with my career. I'm sure I'm going to be making a lot more mistakes, right? But my most embarrassing mistakes, just to be transparent with you, I didn't ask for help. I was either too proud or scared of what other people would think about me if I asked for help. I didn't follow through on promises. I avoided conflict at just about every cost. I didn't have any of those difficult conversations that really needed to take place. I didn't step up and take responsibility when I really needed to. And I didn't encourage others. I didn't recognize when someone else had done something really awesome. These mistakes had nothing at all to do with being a programmer. The most difficult parts of a job, of any job, and maybe the most valuable parts of any job, have nothing at all to do with technology. It's people. It's how we value others and how we value ourselves. It wasn't until many years later, through some training, some mentoring, maybe a little bit of maturity, that I began to realize there's a lot more to being in technology, being a software developer, than just cranking out code. And I needed an attitude adjustment to that. I've had to come to terms with what it means to be a leader, and I want to give you some things that I've learned along the way. You may be thinking what I used to think, that leadership is only for management. And I didn't want to have anything to do with being in a management position. But leadership is not just for management. Not to say that there aren't some leadership qualities, some things that ought to be part of management. And if you're in a management role, it's your responsibility to set the example, to establish a culture for your team. But I'm here to tell you that leadership is for all y'all. All right, let me give you a lesson in redneck English. I'm from the South in the U.S., and I speak fluent redneck. So you, when you're referring to one person, right, that makes sense. Then there's y'all, which is maybe a group of people. But when you mean everyone, it's all y'all. Leadership is for everybody. Now, this talk is not about management, but here's some quick tips. My advice to you that if you are recently been put into a management role, or you may find yourself in a management role in the near future, it's okay to ask for help. And look for a mentor. Ask your employer to help connect you with a mentor. Maybe this isn't what you wanted, but you can embrace it and you can go for it. One thing I didn't realize when I was in the management roles before is that you can actually geek out about management stuff, just like you can geek out about technology and programming. There's things you can learn and you can invest in. Be kind and respectful and help others unlock their potential. That's what you're there for, is to help empower and unlock the potential of the people that you work with. And if you decide it's not for you and you want to go back to being a programmer, it's like riding a bike. People worry about, well, if I get in management, I'm going to lose my skills. No, everybody's a beginner at technology changes so fast. You can pick up and learn and get right back into it if you find that you really have to. All right, enough about that. A few years ago at my previous company, a group of us went through a leadership training program at the Scarlet Leadership Institute in Nashville, Tennessee. And our group was named the Emerging Leaders. But every time I saw emerging leaders, to me it looked like, oh my God. And every 6 weeks we would go to an off-site training and we would learn about different leadership skills like team dynamics, resolving conflict, communication, and many others. And I highly recommend that if you have something like that in your area, that you sign up and you know, or maybe ask your employer to send you to some leadership training. It's really, really awesome. To give you an example, in one of those sessions, we learned about negotiation, and we role played. We broke up into these small groups, pairs of teams, and each team was given a document that described the negotiation scenario, what we were negotiating for, what our terms were, a little bit of intel or information about the other team that we were negotiating with. And each round of this role playing helped to teach different aspects of negotiation. We learned things like the importance of doing research so that you know all the information you can about what you're negotiating for and who you're negotiating with. This idea of a BATNA, which is your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This is when you can know when it's okay to walk away from a deal. When it's not at your minimum level, you can say, okay, thank you very much, and move on. And then there's this idea of anchoring a negotiation. Whoever puts out an initial terms, or makes that first move, puts them in a really big advantage because the rest of the conversation is anchored around that initial idea. At the end of the day, our instructor cautioned us that our new negotiation skills were extremely powerful and to use our powers for good and not for evil. Well, about a month later, after I took this course, I found myself in the market for a new vehicle, and I did my research. I knew what I wanted. I understood all the options. I knew my adversary, and I knew I could walk away from a deal that wasn't as good as my BATNA, my best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And an opportunity presented itself the day that I needed to get a cavity filled. A used truck showed up on my search list, and I thought, well, it's close to my dentist. I'll go to the dentist, and I'll go check out this truck. And it didn't take long for one of their salespeople, the sharks, those kind of people, that attack you. I didn't step foot out the door, and he was already on top of me. And he says, "What brings you in today?" That's how we talk down there. And I said, "Well, I just finished at the dentist, and you've got a truck here I'm interested in looking at." And he says, "Buddy, research says that the two things that people hate the most are going to the dentist and buying a car. You're doing both in the same day. You must be tough." Indeed I am. When we got to his office, he made the mistake of letting me make the first strike, and I anchored the deal with a number that I was confident, based on my research, was close to their bottom line. And I had a lot more firepower from my recent training on negotiation at my disposal. And after the dust had settled, I had the exact truck I wanted, and I knew I could turn around and sell that truck for at least $2,000 more than what I just paid for it. That's pretty cool. Walking away knowing that you got a good deal, that is a great feeling. Negotiation is a leadership skill that can definitely help you in life, both outside of work and in the workplace. Being able to negotiate on behalf of your team for more time, more resources, more facilities, or being able to negotiate on behalf of your company with a vendor or a contractor. That's a really, really incredible skill to have. Very valuable, and it's can set you up as a great leader in your company. One of the books our leadership group went through was this Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. In this book, he describes 3 virtues that every leader or every great employee should possess. This book can not only help you to identify and hire the very best employees, but if, like me, you can read this book and kind of compare, well, how do I measure up with being an ideal team player? What are some things I can change or learn from this to be a better employee? The first and most important virtue is humility. The characteristics of a healthy humility are not having an inflated ego, no concern for status, caring more about the team than about yourself, and eager to share the credit with others. Humility, though, there's a spectrum. And on one end of the spectrum, you have the opposite of humility, people who are characterized as being arrogant and self-centered, who are like politicians that are causing division and resentment among everyone. And at the other end of the spectrum is someone that almost appears to be humble, but can be just as damaging to your team. They discredit their own talents and value to the team, and they won't point out problems when they see them. And I read this, and it was like a punch to the gut. Gosh, that was me for most of my career. I've been more on that end of the spectrum, not really speaking up when I needed to. One of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, had this to say about humility. The heart of being humble is unselfish motivation for your team and for your customers. When you truly want the best outcome for everyone around you, you're going to act with humility. Now, the second virtue is hungry. Unfortunately, this is not talking about food. Otherwise, I would, I've got this one. Passed that test with flying colors. Now, hungry is about passion and taking ownership of work. Again, there's a spectrum of behavior. And on one end, you've got someone whose life is completely dominated by their work to the detriment to themselves and everyone around them. And the other end of the spectrum, we got someone that has no motivation, no passion. They're just doing the bare minimum to get by. And the goal is to have a balance, somewhere in the middle where you have passion for your work, but it's manageable and sustainable. And then the third virtue is smart. And this is not about IQ or intelligence. This is about having common sense regarding other people. Characteristics include listening, being engaged, asking good questions, being sensitive about how your words and actions affect other people around you, and having empathy for your coworkers and customers. To sum up, it's pretty much having respect for the people around you. Now, there's a rule that every leadership presentation must include a Venn diagram. Humility, passion, diligence, empathy, sensitivity, all these characteristics are choices that you can strive to make and skills that you can learn. And by doing so, you not only become an indispensable employee, you can inspire others to want to do the same. And you become a leader. Did you know that different people have different personalities? It's true. Different people have different behaviors. They have different ways of seeing the world. They have how they process information, how they make decisions, how they respond to conflict. It's truly mind-boggling. The software profession that we are in attracts a lot of people with, let's say, suboptimal people skills. We can be productive and get quite far in our careers just on our technical skills alone. And most of us, including me, are much more comfortable communicating with our computers than we are with the people that are around us. You know, those unpredictable, irrational, emotional people, right? There are many behavior and personality assessments out there that can help you to gain insight into other people and into yourself. My favorite so far is DISC. Now, DISC stands for some bunch of fancy words that describe personality traits. And these traits can provide insight into behaviors such as being action-oriented, people-focused. Now, no personality assessment is 100% accurate, but it can be a really great tool to figure out, well, how do people interact? How do people like to receive communication, to process information? It's a fantastic tool that can help you to understand the other people on your team and how your team can work better together. For example, some people are really deep thinkers, and they don't like surprises. Going into a meeting and announcing some big change and then expecting them to immediately give you some feedback, that's not how they like to operate. They need time to process that new information before they can formulate an opinion that they're comfortable sharing. And, they can give you some really valuable feedback if you give them the space to do it. Now, you need people who are active, take charge, gung-ho, but you also need people who think deeply about things and keep, everyone else grounded. Understanding behavior and personalities can go a long way to helping you empathize with your coworkers. It can help you to influence others because you know how your personality should fit with theirs and how you can communicate with them. And it's also having a better understanding of your own personality can help you to build a strategy for, your own workplace. Just being able to articulate to your manager, hey, this is the best way you can communicate with me, or how I like to receive information or process information. That can make a huge difference in the effectiveness of your relationship with your manager and, with your effectiveness as an employee. Learning how other people process information and communicate puts you in an amazing position of influence and leadership. What's your greatest weakness? Don't you just love that question? You may be in a job interview or a job review, right? And you know the question's coming because they just asked you, what are your greatest strengths? And you try to come up with something clever, like, well, my greatest weakness is I just work too hard. I can't help it. I have to get things done on time, or it'll just kill me. It's a curse, I suppose. Well, another powerful tool is this book called The Strengths Finder. The book and assessment are the results of tens of thousands of surveys and years of research. done by Gallup Research, and each one of you has unique talents and skills and knowledge, and the Strengths Finder is designed to help you discover your top 5 gifts and how to maximize those gifts. According to the book, focusing a lot of time and effort on your weaknesses is only going to lead to mediocrity at best. You're just not excited about your weaknesses. That's why they're your weaknesses, right? You know, when you're not able to use your strengths at work, you're going to have more negative interactions. You're going to dread going to work. You're going to achieve less. You're going to have fewer creative moments, right? Does that sound familiar? Discovering and focusing on your top 5 strengths will have a far, far greater impact. When you're in a work environment where you're able to use your strengths on a consistent basis, you're going to be 100% more engaged and excited. And again, this is an incredible tool that you and your team can use to discover and unlock your potential and how your strengths can complement each other, so that your whole team can be more effective and everyone can be a whole lot happier with the work that they're doing. Let's talk about multitasking. Our culture seems to be fixated on multitasking. We put it in our job descriptions. Must be a good multitasker. We put it in our resumes. Best multitasker ever, 5 years running. The truth is, none of us are as good at multitasking as we think we are, no matter how hard we try to convince ourselves. Our industry talks a lot about maximizing utilization. Every employee needs to be 100% utilized. We can't be wasting time. Time is money. But let me ask you, what's a highway at 100% utilization? It's a parking lot. Right, traffic jam. And it's not just my opinion, it's math. It's true for traffic management, it's true for fluid dynamics, it's true for electricity, and it's also true for people. Now, kids love going to a circus. Big kids, you know, us grown-ups, we don't mind it so much either. It's exciting to see that lion, you know, the guy get in the cage with a lion and get the lion to do tricks, right? The lion tamer. The whip is cool. We think, yeah, Indiana Jones, he's a pretty cool guy. You know, but what is up with the chair? Well, it turns out lions have incredible powers of focus, and it's what helps them to be predators in the wild. And when you put the 4 legs of a chair in a lion's face, the lion can't decide which of those 4 legs he needs to worry about. So, in essence, the lion is paralyzed by indecision. We are much the same way. When we have too many tasks on our plate, our brains become overloaded, overwhelmed. We think we can switch from one thing to another. We'll put that on pause and we'll go over here and work on this other thing that's also highest priority, right? And but our brains don't stop thinking about that other problem. That's not how our brains work. Those other tasks continue to haunt us even in our sleep. How many times have you woke up with like some revelation of, aha, I know how to fix that problem? That's because our brains don't stop thinking about those stresses. And those stresses, you know, they just build up and up. It may sound counterintuitive, but do everything in your power to limit the work that you do to one thing at a time. I guarantee, I've seen it happen many, many times. If a team can focus on one thing at a time, they will get more work done, get it done faster and higher quality than trying to juggle a whole lot of different things at the same time. Speaking of, making the best use of your time, I want to share something with you real quick that made a huge impact in the way that I run a lot of meetings. And that's this thing called Lean Coffee. It's a strange name, really doesn't have anything to do with coffee. It was originally created for community meetups to make the most effective and efficient use of everyone's time. Like everyone would get together at a coffee shop and sit around and have a discussion. Maybe they only had an hour to have their meeting, and they wanted to make sure they had the most effective meeting they could. This same technique can be applied to a lot of the meetings that we have in our organizations. So what you need are some sticky notes, some markers, a Kanban board, which is, can be a dry erase board, a whiteboard, an easel. It could be an actual Kanban tool. There's a lot of things you could use. You need a timer, and a good attitude would help too. Good attitude would help in a lot of things, right? And when you start the meeting, you need to write down all the ideas, the topics that you have that you want to discuss. Each person does this on to those sticky notes. Take a couple of minutes to do that. Then take a couple of minutes to go around the team, everyone there, to kind of pitch your ideas. What's your topic about in 10 seconds kind of thing. And then everyone has 2 votes, depending on how you want to run Lean Coffee. Maybe you give your team, everyone 3 votes, but 2 votes works. And you can choose if you want to vote on 2 separate topics or use both votes on 1 topic. And after the voting is over, then of course you want to sort those topics by the ones that got the most votes. Now you're ready to discuss. And the way the discussions work is you take the first highest priority, the one with the most votes, you pull that into your doing column, you set your timer for 5 minutes, and you start talking. Maybe during the talk somebody might be taking some notes and maybe jotting down some action items as part of that. Then the timer goes off, and everyone has a vote. Do we stay on this topic, or do we move on? And depending on that, if they want to stay on the topic, then you can set the timer and go through another 5 minutes, or you can move on to the next highest voted topic. This is going to allow you to talk about the most valuable things in your meeting. You're going to walk away thinking, wow, I didn't expect that. But we talked about things that were way more important than what I thought was the most important thing. And the voting is what's going to ensure that no one person or one topic dominates the entire meeting. You know that guy, like he's the loudest guy, and he's got the most important ideas, and he's going to, railroad the entire meeting to talk about his most important thing, right? So this is an amazing tool, and this can apply to so many types of meetings. You can also run remote meetings if you have people who work remotely. You can use a physical board. Maybe somebody has a webcam pointing at the board. You could use a virtual board where you use voting, kind of like maybe by setting a card size or something like that. There's different creative ways you can do remote meetings, and you can even scale up the Lean Coffee idea, and so that lots of people can have concurrent Lean Coffee meetings at the same time, and then like a final round of discussion to kind of pitch the most valuable things that each team talked about. Really, really awesome tool. So I submit to you that there are three inevitable things in life. There's death, taxes, and PowerPoint. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. You're going to, whether it's speaking to your team or to your company, or somebody gets you to give a speech at a wedding or something like that, you're going to have to stand up in front of a group of people and present some information. In 2011, I finally got up the courage to give my first talk to a meetup, and I stank. I was terrible. But a funny thing happened. I had people thank me for sharing. I had people tell me that I did a good job, even though I knew that I was the worst speaker in speaker history. And it took a while for it to sink in, but I learned a valuable lesson about the power of community. There are people out there who are really awesome at being human, who will look past your mistakes, who will see the good and potential that's in you and encourage you to not give up. Because when you do hard stuff like share your knowledge and experience, everyone benefits. I hope every day I'm a little more like one of those kinds of people. Here's one of my favorite quotes. When I gave my first talk, people didn't remember how I fumbled around with some terrible demo failure. They didn't remember, the mistakes and the ahs and the ums and all the classic, mistakes that you can make as a speaker. But they remembered me, and they remembered that even in some small way, I helped them. And I helped them with their career, with learning some new piece of technology, no matter how small it was. In 2016, I had the privilege of giving a keynote at Music City Code in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I used to live. And I had several people come up to me after my talk. And I shared this same story about how I got started. And I had several people come up to me and say, I was there. I remember when you gave your first talk. And you're right, you were terrible. Gee, thanks. Glad that I made that impression. You may be thinking to yourself, well, I can understand being asked or forced to speak. Why would I volunteer to get up and do this thing that's so terrifying? Well, let me tell you, having someone not only understand your message, but then be inspired to actually go and do that thing that you're talking about is one of the most rare and precious rewards I have ever experienced. I've gone to conferences or meetups and different things, and people have come up to me years later and said, hey, I want you to know how much your talk made an impact on me and, led me to do these things that were like far more amazing than I could have ever imagined. Public speaking is an amazing skill that you can learn that will set you apart as a leader, open doors and opportunities, and launch you ahead as an influencer in your workplace and your community. And there are tons and tons of other benefits to being a speaker. Public speaking, though, is just one example. There are so many ways that you can share your knowledge and experience with others. And I encourage you to find one of those kinds of areas that you can make a positive impact on your community and your workplace. Have you heard of the Dilbert Principle? It basically states that the most ineffective workers are systematically promoted to the place where they can do the least amount of damage, which is usually management. Early in my career, I worked under a manager who exemplified this Dilbert Principle. I didn't like the man personally or professionally. His incompetence was legendary. He was notoriously bad. Mistakes were named after him, and yet he still continued to rise in rank and responsibility. A lot of the work that I was required to do under his direction was of no value to anyone. For example, I was asked to create a huge binder of documentation for every method and every stored procedure that was in the code that we were writing, and no one was going to read this, ever. Meaningless and pointless work is soul-crushing. I toughed it out for more than a year. I tried to find every way out from underneath his control. But in the end, I left that job and took another job where I could hopefully be happier with the situation. And I said to myself, life is too short to work somewhere that stinks. And I started living by this philosophy and offering it as a advice to other people, and I would hear them complaining about their managers and their workplace. You see, in technology, we have, an incredible privilege that we're in such high demand that we can basically choose where we want to work and how long we want to work there. We can find another job if we really want to, without much trouble. That isn't the case in every profession. The problem is this idea began to pollute my perspective. And when something work would start to go sour, I would think, oh great, here we go again. Time to look for a new job. And years later, I was in a similar situation. I was unhappy with my work situation, and I started looking at other jobs, and I had a really attractive job offer on the table. I was trying to decide whether I should accept it or not. And that's when my wife asked me 2 questions that stopped me in my tracks. She asked, have you done everything that you can do? And if you left now, would you have any regrets? Fine. I declined the job offer, and I went back to my work determined to do everything in my power to make the situation better for me and everyone around me. I still left that job 1 year later, but I left having no regrets and being extremely proud of the work that we had done. It had been one of the most prolific years in my career. Now, there can be toxic environments, there can be career-limiting situations, there can be incredible opportunities that come along that justify changing a job. But for everything else, I've got a new mindset. Really, life is too short to let things stay the way they are. You've probably heard the phrase, well, that's not my job, right? I've learned that taking ownership and responsibility is the right thing to do. And it has far-reaching effects. I've learned that it's okay to have those conversations with your management to say, this is a terrible situation. You may even go so far as to say, I don't know that I can see myself staying here, or see other people staying here if this situation doesn't change. And asking your management, your leadership to say, what can I do? What can I do to help change this situation, to make things better? It's always the right time to do the right thing. And in doing so, people are going to notice. You're going to be considered a leader for taking on the responsibility of helping to do whatever, even if it's something really small, to help change that situation. Speaking of changing jobs, every now and again, we have to say goodbye to folks. Sometimes some really, really good folks. And regardless of the circumstances, we let them know how much we're going to miss them. And sometimes we throw a party, right? We get together over dinner or something, and we let them know, how much we're going to miss them. And we tell stories of things that they did, that we're going to remember them for, silly things or, incredible things that they did. One day, it struck me as we were having one of these going away, goodbye party type things. This is really awesome that we're telling all these stories, but why can't we do this more often? Why can't we tell people how awesome they are while they're still working here? Why do we have to wait until someone is leaving before we let them know how much of an impact that they've had on the team and on the company? So I decided to do something. I ran an experiment, and every Friday I would post a tribute to someone at my company. Now, this is an example. Nakota was our customer support manager, and as someone described, he does the work of 10,000 people. And Nakota consistently went above and beyond the call of duty to make customers happy. He's awesome. Now, the drawing isn't important. It's just something fun that I like to do. And usually the things that I said about that person weren't all that special or earth-shattering either. The real magic was, throughout the day, story after story, what everyone else said. Encouragement, high fives. It was beautiful. All I did was start the conversation. And this experiment lasted for about a year, and I had so many people come up to me and thank me either for being recognized, how special it was to be recognized by their peers, or people just from other parts of the company to say, I am so glad we were able to recognize this person because they really deserve it. You see, every one of us wants to know that the things we do matter, that the work we do has value and significance, that we have value and significance. And encouragement highlights a person's strengths. It's positive reinforcement. They want to go and do more of that same stuff that got them recognized. I began to reflect over, more than 10 years of what quote unquote agile and lean software development, and I've come to the conclusion that respect is the most fundamental principle. Respect requires that a company remain true to a goal of sustainable workplace where employees can thrive. Respect requires that we listen and have empathy, that we have mutual respect for people. It brings them together, and they want to fight for one another when there's mutual respect there. Decisions that are made on, in the frame of respect are going to take into an account a healthy workplace, well-being, and to reduce friction and wasteful activities in a workplace. Respect is what enables you to be successful at all those other things that you want to do. Now, if you know me, I can't go for very long without talking about bacon. So I submit to you the highest award for excellence. When you encourage someone, they're going to go, and it's kind of a virtuous cycle. They're going to go, and when they see that modeled, they're going to want to go and share encouragement with other people, and those people are going to go and inspire even more. Now, I grew up in a dysfunctional family, and there wasn't a whole lot of encouragement going on. So encouragement doesn't come natural to me. This is a skill that I've had to learn, and it's a skill that you can learn too. I'll just quickly show you that. Imagine you have a coworker named Mary, and you can say, Mary, thank you for the database work that you do and for always smiling. You are such an encouragement to me and to everyone around you. Paul, thank you for always being willing to help. I know I can share my problems with you, and you have really creative solutions. You are awesome. Mark, thank you for always wearing deodorant and for coming to work fully clothed. Keep up the good work, buddy. See, it's not that hard. You can find things to encourage one another about. If there's someone who's made an impact on you in some way, recently or in the past, let them know. Don't wait until it's too late. John Quincy Adams said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. None of those things require you to be a manager or to have a fancy title. I have one more story that I want to quickly share with you. In the U.S., we have a holiday called Thanksgiving. And it's a time to reflect over the year, and, well, it really means we eat a lot of food. But Thanksgiving 1982 was a very pivotal moment in my life. As tradition in my family, we would all get together at my aunt and uncle's house. And me and my siblings would get in my mom's car, we'd drive a couple hours away, and we would all have fun, with the rest of our extended family. This particular Thanksgiving, 1982, I discovered one of these in my cousin's house. Now, I don't know if I spent the entire day sitting at this computer, but I do know that it made an impression on my aunt and uncle. And sometime later, my mom gets a call, and we get back in the car and we drive to my aunt and uncle's house, and there waiting for me is a cardboard box, and inside was the TRS-80, a cassette drive, a floppy drive, which is kind of unheard of, a dot matrix printer, and this book. This one kind and very generous act launched me on a journey of computers and programming and a love for technology. I continue to be inspired by my aunt and uncle's example of not only investing in their own family, but in countless others. I can't thank them enough for the impact that they have made on my life and my career. You have an amazing opportunity to impact your family, your relatives, your community, and even the world. You never know if some act of kindness, some word of encouragement, or a small investment of your time could be that catalyst that launches someone else on their lifelong journey. So this is my challenge to you. regardless of the technology that you know, regardless of your age, your years of experience, you have amazing potential to impact your workplace and your family, your community, and beyond in significant, positive, and meaningful ways. Go maximize your talents. Go take ownership and responsibility. Go be courageous. Do those hard things. Go inspire others. Go and be awesome. Thank you.